Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into sources and give you that essential shortcut to, well, being really informed. And today we're zeroing in on a writer who pretty much mastered that shortcut, Martha Gellhorn, an incredible correspondent, travel memoirist from the 20th century. Fearless, really.
Absolutely. And our sources, they lean heavily on her collection, Travels with Myself and Another. Our aim today to pull out those core insights she gathered, over decades of being constantly on the move.
Yeah, lessons about conflict, human resilience.
And what she very bluntly called the horror journey.
Right. And what you see straight away is that Gellhorn, I mean, she was famously private, wasn't she? An American journalist. But she completely set the stage for that modern style of first-person adventure writing.
Like Thoreau, Chatwin.
Exactly. Her stories were never just, I went here, I saw this. They always tapped into something, well, much deeper than just the place itself.
And what drove that depth, really, was her moral compass. The bedrock of her work wasn't just being curious. It was, as the sources put it, this irrepressible, passionate rage against injustice.
That's the engine.
That rage absolutely fueled her, pushed her into, well, pretty much every dangerous spot on the map.
Okay, so let's dig into her travel philosophy first, because she definitely saw a difference between the pros, the unequaled professionals, and, well, the rest of us.
She did. She knew most readers, most people really, are what she called amateur travelers.
And that distinction is brilliant, isn't it?
It really is. She got that for the amateur. The trip is all about rancor,
Yeah.
minor personal disasters.
She said you could bore anyone stiff talking about Copenhagen's architecture or the spirituality of Kathmandu.
Instantly.
Yeah. But the only part of travel guaranteed to hold an audience.
Disaster.
Total disaster. Did you lose your bags 4 times, break your leg falling off a pyramid, get food poisoning from dodgy sheep's eyes?
That's the story people lean in for.
And this focus on disaster, it was tied to her own sort of compulsion to travel, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. She compared herself to a leopard toward his spots. Couldn't help it. She claimed she'd stayed in, 53 countries, long enough to actually learn something?
But her toolkit for getting through these horror journeys, it almost seems counterintuitive.
Right. 2 main things. First, work. She called it the best remedy for despair.
Okay.
And second, a weak memory. Genuinely weak. She forgot places, people, books incredibly quickly. Had to rely on old diaries, letters, just to figure out where she'd actually been.
Which means experience often didn't stick.
Exactly. Experience was kind of useless without recall. She gives this amazing, really vivid example from Castelli in Greece.
The swimming incident.
Yes. Swam against advice, got caught in this vicious circular current.
Flailing for shore.
Clinging on with fingers and fingernails. But the real kicker, the tragedy for her, wasn't just the danger. It was realizing she'd been caught in the exact same kind of current years before, off Mauritius. And forgotten.
Wow. So she had to relearn mortal danger every single time. That memory failure, maybe it forced her to see the world fresh, even if it meant risking her neck over and over.
It's quite something.
A compelling way to start her journey into global conflict, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot. China, 1941. Traveling with her companion, UC.
Right. And for anyone maybe new to Gellhorn's memoir, UC is the unwilling companion. Famously, infamously, Ernest Hemingway.
Ah, yes.
And this trip was right before the U.S. got into the war. They sailed from San Francisco, stopped in Honolulu.
And while they were there, Hemingway toured Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And his reaction, it's chilling, actually.
Yeah, his immediate take, totally cold-blooded, was that the setup planes, wingtip to wingtip, ships crammed together, it was designed to get the whole lot wiped out.
He called it the world's richest target for the Japanese.
Stark prediction. So they eventually get to Hong Kong. Not the shiny financial hub we know now, but looked like it was nailed together hurriedly from old wood, as she put it.
And the poverty she saw there just floored her.
Absolutely shocking. Opium dens where coolies smoked because opium was literally unbelievably cheaper than food. It dulled the hunger pang.
God. And the most cruel poverty, as she described it, involved tiny children carving those intricate ivory balls, the tourist trinkets.
Yeah, she reckoned they'd be blind before 20 from the eye strain, the close work.
And this is where her, that philosophical rage hits the pavement. Seeing that kind of suffering, she apparently had a mild fit of hysterics, just screaming about the injustice, the slave labor.
Understandable, really.
And Hemingway's response, he just looks at her distress and delutters this absolute classic line of cultural relativism, maybe.
What did he say?
The trouble with you, Em, is that you think everybody's exactly like you. What you can't stand, they can't stand. What's hell for you has to be hell for them.
Oof. Harsh. Brutal almost. It forces her, and us, I suppose, to really question the limits of empathy from the outside. Is her outrage valid if the locals have found a way to endure their version of hell?
Yeah, it's a tension she never quite resolves, does she? But it definitely fuels the narrative.
Drives it forward. So, moving inland, they get to Kunming, a city bombed daily.
Daily. Yet the Chinese residents, they just started repairing the damage almost as soon as the bombs stopped falling. Endurance was their secret weapon, she saw, not tech.
Just sheer grit. But the journey itself, it was also full of absurdity. They had this military escort, a Mr. Ma. Pretty useless, apparently.
Right. Gellhorn asks him why some steep hillsides were all burned off.
And Mr. Ma, completely serious, explains it was to get rid of the tigers.
Okay.
Because, he says, the tigers eat tender little roots and sweet grasses.
Vegetarian tigers in China.
Only Gellhorn could find wartime destruction side by side with vegetarian tigers.
It's incredible. She also flew with those legendary CNAC pilots, didn't she? Like Roy Leonard.
Yeah, navigating by compass, eyesight, and experience. Trying out new routes constantly, just to baffle the Japanese. Brave stuff.
Okay, let's jump forward slightly. The Caribbean, 1942. Very different kind of war there.
Completely different feel. In China, the enemy was visible, on land. In the Caribbean, the fatal danger was on the sea. Invisible.
And the stats are horrifying. That year alone, 1,508 Allied merchant ships were sunk. It was this unseen psychological battle.
The human cost was immense. Survivors reaching Puerto Rico, she described them as gaunt men with this specific cuckoo look in their eyes.
Adrift for weeks sometimes, up to 23 days in lifeboats.
And she observed that kind of isolation, being hunted by an enemy you couldn't see. It was somehow infinitely more terrible than the land wars she knew.
So naturally she had to experience it, or get close to it.
Right. She booked passage on a potato boat, basically. A sloop called the Pilot, captained by a guy named Carlton.
And the islands themselves were politically bizarre.
Totally surreal, like St. Martin. Half French under the Vichy government, so Axis-aligned.
And half Dutch, allied, on opposite sides of a world war, but sharing this tiny island.
And they'd lived peacefully for centuries, their real common language, English.
It's just incredible. And the war literally washed ashore. On Anguilla, they found 2 empty lifeboats beached.
One American, 8 days adrift. The other English, 23 days adrift. Just remnants of that invisible war.
But even amidst all that horror, the sheer beauty of the place offered her a kind of escape, didn't it?
It did. A personal escape. She found this moment of a state of grace, which can rightly be called happiness. Just swimming naked in the clear turquoise sea, forgetting the war, just for a bit.
It highlights that tension in her work, I think. The need to report the horror, but also the personal need to sometimes just escape it.
Definitely. Okay, fast forward again. 20 years this time. Africa in 1962.
Right, and here the dynamics of race and power were shifting dramatically. Post-colonialism starting to take hold.
In newly independent Cameroon, she noted that blacks were now bosses in their own house. A huge contrast to what she felt in colonial Nairobi in Kenya.
Where signs saying, "No dogs or natives allowed," were apparently still visible at some hotel entrances. Pretty grim.
Yeah, and she documented these fascinating cultural collisions, especially involving some Czech refugees running a pharmacy in a place called Mbalmayo.
Ah, the pharmacy stories.
They basically became the local doctors because the locals had this intense passion for medicines.
Which included, what was it, demanding colonic irrigations 3 times a week?
Yep, an absolute adoration of injections for anything. And, tragically, this belief that gasoline was some kind of cure-all.
Wow. Dangerous combination of beliefs.
Very. And then there's that amazing cultural flip on hygiene. Gellhorn admits being initially sort of ashamed of her own reaction to what she perceived as local body odor. But her hosts basically told her not to worry. They revealed that black people found the white European smell sickening. They called it the stale odor of corpses.
That's such a powerful bit of perspective, isn't it? Really makes you check your assumptions.
Completely flips the script.
What?
The Africa section also gives us her driver, Joshua. A Kikuyu Presbyterian city boy, big dreams of owning a fleet of cars.
But the irony.
He didn't actually know how to drive the heavy Land Rover they had, and he refused to risk his fancy pointed shoes in the mud.
So he just watched the car, claiming he was guarding it against clothes thieves.
Exactly, instead of, actually driving it through the rough terrain.
Oh dear. And Joshua had his own horror journey moment, didn't he, in Tanganyika?
He did. They drove right into this infamous black cotton mud, which is like quicksand, and then they were attacked by tsetse flies. Dudus, he called them.
The description sounds terrifying.
The swarm was so intense, so aggressive, it reduced him to just keening in a low wail. Absolute terror, he declared. If we see these Dudus again, I will die.
Understandable, I suppose. Brings us to her later reflections on what we call progress.
Yeah, she became quite disillusioned, didn't she? Visiting places she'd loved years before.
She found that the influx of money, of tourism, it just ruined the simple beauty. St. Martin, which had that surreal charm, became a thriving, blighted area.
Even Virgin Gorda, littered with bottles and plastic debris from wealthy visitors.
And the biggest impact was on the local people. They used to be idle, chatty, easy people, she remembered.
But now they worked for foreigners, felt poor by comparison. They weren't content anymore. The money, the progress had sort of destroyed the grace of their lives.
So when you pull it all together, her real expertise wasn't just surviving wars or tough journeys.
No, it was her ability to synthesize, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
To weave together the big political, historical facts with these incredibly absurd, painful, deeply human moments she found everywhere.
And she respected Hemingway's writing for that kind of honesty, didn't she?
Deeply. She admired how he pared sentences back until they are as direct and true as they could possibly be. It's a toughness and honesty you see in her own prose, absolutely.
So, circling back to that idea of the subjective horror journey, what did she ultimately conclude was the worst part?
It wasn't the danger, surprisingly. It was boredom. Sheer grinding boredom.
Whether stuck in a KGB-monitored flat in Moscow visiting some diplomat.
Mrs. M, she calls her.
Right. Or stuck among listless hippies in some slum in Islip. That combination of discomfort and just stagnation, that, she decided, was the real kernel of horror in travel.
Which does leave us with a pretty provocative final thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Echoing her whole life's work, really.
Go on.
Well, she concluded humans are always making new roadmaps, but we don't really learn from past mistakes because, as she put it, humans do not live long enough.
Okay.
So if travel itself, even under the most extreme conditions, fundamentally fails or becomes horror, the moment it hits that threshold of boredom, what does that say about the value of your own, hopefully well-informed, non-bored life? Should the goal just be to make sure you're never caught standing still, never bored? Is that the ultimate takeaway?